Golf Central on YouTube is brought to you by the new Paradigm Woods and Irons from Callaway.
It's the news that caught everyone by surprise on Tuesday. PGA Tour, DP World Tour, Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia announcing a landmark agreement to unify the game of golf on a global basis. In a joint statement, the agreement promises to promote and grow the game globally for the benefit of all stakeholders and ends any pending litigation. So here's the parameter for the partnership that they had sketched out, PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and the PIF to combine commercial operations to unify the game of golf on a global basis. The new collectively owned for-profit entity, a name TBD. The PIF will make capital investment and new entity to facilitate its growth. PGA Tour will remain as a 501c6 tax-exempt organization, retaining administrative oversight of the PGA Tour. Mutually agreed to end all pending litigation between the participating parties, and a process to be established for players to reapply for PGA Tour or DP World Tour membership after the 2023 season. We had PGA Tour board member Jimmy Dunn on the show yesterday. Afterwards, he spoke with Sports Illustrated, sketched out some of the parameters for the deal. The PGA Tour will still be called the PGA Tour, but now Commissioner Jay Monahan also oversees LIV Golf. Monahan has told Al Rumayyan they will evaluate LIV at the end of the year. Monahan wants to disband LIV. He can if LIV golfers want to play on the tour. Monahan and the current PGA Tour leaders have to approve those terms. Monahan has banned them. It is presumed that penalties to return the PGA Tour would be significant. Going on further, the PIF is not actually contributing anything directly to the PGA Tour or its players. The PIF will instead get right of first refusal to be the tour's investment partner. The PIF has not promised a single dollar in investments, and the tour has not promised the Saudis anything other than that right of first refusal. And finally, all legal disputes have, quote unquote, been settled. So with that additional context, let's welcome in our legal expert, Jodi Balsam, sports law professor at Brooklyn Law School. Jodi, we're trying to put the puzzle pieces together for this memorandum of agreement. Based off these comments from Jimmy Dunn, adding some further context, saying Jay Monahan would oversee LIV and be able to potentially disband LIV at his discretion at the end of the year. From a legal standpoint, can this pass the muster of the Department of Justice and U.S. antitrust regulators? Or could this be a lame duck deal?
Well, at this point, there already is an ongoing Department of Justice investigation into the PGA Tour. This additional information, I think, heightens any antitrust concern. Whether or not this new arrangement between the PGA Tour, the DP Tour, and LIV Golf, also known as PIF, whether that arrangement succeeds, comes to fruition, they've just thrown a lot of more kindle on the fire here for antitrust interest in what is happening in professional golf. Whether or not there is some sort of merger here, this information clarifies that the PGA Tour is in fact the dominant actor in professional golf, and that any kind of new entry has to pass them as some sort of gatekeeper, right? We've had an attempt at new entry through LIV Golf. It did not get much of a foothold, in part because the PGA Tour refused to allow golfers to play on both circuits at the same time. They filed an antitrust lawsuit to try to force the PGA Tour's hand. That apparently has failed. And now the end game is the PGA Tour controls the future of LIV Golf, possibly eliminating a competitor in the golf ecosystem. That will be of interest to the antitrust regulators.
So as we're looking at what the antitrust regulators would have to sift through to determine if this deal can go through as currently structured, let's go to the downside. If for some reason the deal doesn't come to fruition, have you already seen that the pending legal matters, have they filed the briefs to have those cease, or have they not taken those steps yet?
So I guess the question you're asking here is this settlement for real? And adjacently, who won the lawsuit here? What does this litigation settlement mean for the parties who are involved? Well, right now, there technically is no formal dismissal of the lawsuit with prejudice. As far as I can tell from the docket, nothing has been formally filed. So arguably, if they wanted to resume the lawsuit, if this deal didn't go through, PIF could continue to fund LIV Golf in pursuing its antitrust claims. But as a practical matter, I don't see this lawsuit going anywhere from here. It is dead and buried based on PIF's own public comments in the last week, right? So one of the ways that PIF was fighting back in that lawsuit was it was refusing to appear for depositions or provide documents claiming foreign sovereign immunity. Its public statements over the last week are essentially statements against its own interest in that legal battle. It has conceded that it does, in fact, control LIV. It does engage in commercial activity in the United States and therefore will be subject to U.S. courts' jurisdiction. Additionally, the statements it's made over the last week seem to undermine its own claims of antitrust harm imposed on it by the PGA Tour. So whatever technical steps need to be taken to withdraw the lawsuit with prejudice, regardless of whether they've been taking the lawsuit is a dead horse. And could they refile their claims? Well, if no formal settlement agreement or withdrawal with prejudice is filed, yes. But again, they've made a host of statements against their own litigation positions over the last week that can and will be used against them if they want to renew those claims.
Jodi, with the initial information that we have with the memorandum of agreement, what Jimmy Dunn shared in that Sports Illustrated article yesterday, were there any strategic missteps to how they've tried to construct this, especially when it comes to looking with the DOJ?
Well, what we've learned from the Jimmy Dunn interview is that there isn't much of a deal there yet. It seems like there's a promise to potentially invest in the PGA Tour to the tune of perhaps over $1 billion. What this deal seems mostly to be about is that the PIF wants to save face in abandoning the litigation and buy some time, and also buy at least a foothold in the future of professional golf. It hasn't seemed to have bought much else. It certainly has obtained no relief on its own behalf from filing this lawsuit, and it doesn't seem to have obtained any guarantees that it will participate as more than an investor in some future commercial entity. The PGA Tour and Jay Monahan in particular seem to have come out as the winners here, especially in that the investment that PIF proposes to make can be used by Jay Monahan to resolve any sense of betrayal or resentment by the PGA Tour loyalists. I've read somewhere that one way that Jay Monahan could potentially use any influx of PIF cash is to compensate all those golfers for rejecting the payday that LIV Golf was offered, or to penalize any LIV golfers who return to the tour by excluding them from access to bonus monies that the PGA Tour will be offering in the future. Seems like a win-win here for the PGA Tour.
All right, that's why we have our legal expert, Jodi Balsam, here on the program. We've been hearing a lot of noise on social media. Thanks for breaking it down from a legal standpoint.
Good to be here.
And we did have some action going on inside the ropes at the RBC Canadian Open. It's PGA Tour rookie Carl Yuan, 68-67. He has a one-shot lead over Canadian Corey Connor, slew of other players who are T2 at 8 under par. And just off that first page leaderboard, defending champion Rory McIlroy made a move on Friday after opening with the 71, where he rode a hot putter but struggled with his ball striking. Today got it dialed those final 9 holes. 4 birdies coming in, a 5 under 67. So McIlroy is just 3 off the lead. Watch out for Rory, who's won the last 2 RBC Canadian Opens staged in Canada.